tribe like the 8 Hedidu Berbers. Try and imagine an umbrella as the wider tribe. And what holds an umbrella up would be all the different metallic strands. And all of those strands would be different valleys in different parts of the mountains, but still under the wider 8 Hedidu tribal umbrella. And so Imilchil was sort of central to the wider tribe. So people from this strand would go, people from that strand would go, and I guess it was like the forerunner to speed dating. You would have men and women chatting with one another in different areas of the festival, and if a match was made, they had religious scholars and imams and mosque priests to legitimize the wedding. Mass weddings would take place at any one time, as I say, revolutionary. It was also, women were allowed to roam freely through the festival site to talk to men. If a woman found a match that she or somebody asked her to marry them, the woman still needed a male member of the family to act as a negotiator for the dowry. So in this part of the world, it used to be that the dowry would be what the man would be offering the wife. So wedding crowns, wedding belts for the ceremonies, other jewellery that would remain the property of the wife. The dowry would also include what today we would call a prenup clause. What would happen in the event of a divorce? And if in the event of a divorce, this clause could be, I will give you a certain amount of livestock, sheep, camels, whatever was agreed upon. So the woman, if she got divorced, she would not be thrown out on a rhea with nothing. This clause in the dowry would kick in, and the religious scholars and imams would make sure that happened. It was a way to protect the divorced women. You have an income coming in afterwards. So the origins of the marriage festival are almost Shakespearean in its origin. You've all heard of Romeo and Juliet, and the tragic love story. Well, the origins of this marriage festival, they say there was a man from one strand of the 8 Hedidu tribe, and he was riding on horseback through a different strand, and he came across a fair young lady picking herbs in the gardens, in the fields, and he gazed down upon her, and he fell instantly in love with her, and she looked up at him, and she fell instantly in love with him. And off he galloped back home and said, Father, I've met this young lady, I wish to marry her. She is from such a place. And the father reacted very negatively. Never, boy, never. Wicked lot of the tribe. Don't you remember the wars of centuries ago when they cut off all the water? Oh, never, the wicked tribal lot. I forbid you to go there again. And the girl, she got the same reaction from her father. Father, I wish to marry him. He's so handsome. He's from this place. Never go, never. I forbid you to go into the field unaccompanied again. And they never saw each other ever again. Oh, Karen, it was shocking. As time went on, their hearts grew heavier and heavier, until one night the man could take it no more. He stirred and he ran off as far away from his family strand, somewhere into this part of the high Atlas Mountains. And simultaneously the girl, sensing his anguish ran off as far away as she could into a different part of the high Atlas Mountains. And when the man could run no more, he sat and he began to cry, and he wept and wept until a pool, nay, a lake of tears appeared at his feet. And at the same time, the girl, she began to cry, and she wept and wept until a pool, nay, a lake of tears appeared at her feet. And when the man could cry no more, he reached out, "Goodbye, my love, goodbye this world," and threw himself into his own lake of tears and drowned. And of course, you know the rest. The girl, "Goodbye, my love, goodbye this world," and she too threw herself into her own lake of tears and drowned. And when the respective strands of the 8-headed tribe had realized what had happened, they were overcome with grief and guilt and remorse. Never shall we stand in the way of two people who believe they should be together. We will create the marriage festival where we will give them permission to marry who they wish during that 1 week of the year. The rest of the time they'll do as they're told, but for that 1 week they can choose. Now it must be a true story, because in one part of the high Atlas Mountains there is a lake called Lake Asli, and in a different part of the high Atlas there is a lake called Lake Taslit. Asli, the groom's lake; Taslit, the bride's lake. So the lakes are there, so the story must be true, Karen.
I believe you.
Now, a lot of marriage and divorce laws have been reformed tremendously, we all believe, thanks to the influence of Lala Salma, the wife of the king, the former wife of the king. 2004, total reforms of marriage and divorce laws. So now 18 is the age for getting married. This is to try and prevent fathers trying to marry off their young daughters in mainly the rural areas for commercial reasons, to better the family. It's to prevent or to make sure girls continue going to school. It's 18 now for marriage. Before it was 15 for boys and 13 for girls. It went from 13 to 15, and then it went to 18 for girls. So, you know, it's you have to you can't marry people under 18. We're told that some people have managed to get around the new laws because they're backshishing, bribing officials in the rural areas to produce a fake birth certificate. But it should be 18 for both sexes. The law was reformed. I hinted at that for those that were with me in Fez yesterday. It's very, very difficult these days for a man to have more than one wife. Before 2004, it was easier because in Islamic culture, which has been, we have a lot of, most of our laws in Morocco are secular laws, but they have been influenced by Islamic culture, just like in the Western world, your secular laws were influenced by Christian laws and rules of the day. So in Islamic culture, you can marry up to 4 wives concurrently, not on the same day, but concurrently you can have 4 wives, providing you are providing equally for them, not favouring one over another, and treating each wife equally. In the past, if a wife, number one, lived in a nice house, then the husband, if he had a little bit of money, he would marry a second wife who might become a servant to wife number one. Well, that cannot happen anymore. Wife number one has to give written permission in front of trained staff in the local government offices to say she authorizes her husband to take a second wife. If that permission is not given, that is not grounds for divorce. If the man says, well, I'll divorce you then, if he does choose to divorce because she refuses to give him permission, then the family courts now clamp down on that. The man would have to pay a high financial price to the wife. But so if a wife number one does want to give permission, the second wife has to have a house of equal value. They do not live in the same house anymore. So this restricts the possibility for most people to contemplate taking second wives. We were told that Mohammed VI was pushing for one man, one wife, full stop. But the clerics, the Islamic clerics, the more hardline Islamic ideologists in Morocco would say, no, come on, Mohammed VI. Whilst we accept that through various lineages, you too are a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad, you cannot go against the writings of the Prophet in the Quran and the Hadith, the sayings of the Prophet. If four wives were allowed under God's law, then we should still have four wives possible. So that law was modified to make it financially restrictive for the vast majority to take a second wife. I only know of two people